Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast presented by Fishhawk Electronics. If you're looking for news, tips, and stories about fishing the Great Lakes, you've come to the right place. And now your host, Chris Larson.
Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast. Joining us today is Captain Will Jewell from Fin N Fly Sportfishing in Port Washington, Wisconsin. Will, thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Will, you're a third-generation Lake Michigan angler. Tell us a little more about your background when it comes to fishing Lake Michigan.
Sure. Third generation. I kind of taught by my father, who was taught by his father. I never had the opportunity to meet my grandpa since he passed before I was around. So I guess I didn't get all the little tricks in the trade from back in the old days, but I think I got most of them covered. So I grew up in Milwaukee, fishing down there quite a bit with my dad since my grandpa had a boat down in McKinley back in 70s and the early 80s. So I did quite a bit of salmon fishing back then, and that's when I would say the lake was a little bit easier, more friendly to the fishermen than it is nowadays. It seemed like a lot more fish in the lake, and I don't need all the high-tech stuff like you do today's world. That kind of passed down from my dad, and ended up getting rid of the boat. So we did a lot of shore fishing, just off the piers and inside the marinas, kind of dependent on wind, water temperature, that kind of thing, different times of year, king salmon, a little bit of brown trout, and I guess the random coho and rainbow trout too at times. So that's kind of how I got into it, and then moved up to Washington County area when I was around 12, I think. Befriended a few buddies, kind of grew up out this way more, and then their families had boats and started fishing out here. I'd say a couple years after that, so probably around 14. And nothing crazy, big boats, just 18, 20 footers, and go out with a couple buddies while we were still in high school and dads and whatnot. Just to kind of keep friendly, a little friendly competition between the families and whatnot. But so that was all good, and then did that till I was 20, and then a buddy of mine was a captain in Port Washington, and he needed a first mate, so I hopped on and started as a deckhand for him. Did that for 5 years. We ran on a 38-foot Bertram, so it was a nice big boat. Really seaworthy and very good fisherman. Taught me quite a bit more than what I had in the past. And I'm getting my license at 25. And the company that I worked for, we had 3 boats in the fleet, and needed another guy to run the third boat. So I started running our third boat when we had the opportunity and other extra trips coming in, and did that for 4 seasons. And then started this season, and then last season, I've been running for Fin N Fly Sportfishing now. A little bit better opportunity for me, and it's been going good. No complaints on that end. Fishing's been good. Boat's really nice. It's a nice 33-foot Bertram. Has the enclosed cabin on it, so you kind of get out of the weather if it's a little crummy, or if it's really warm, gonna get out of the sun too. So fishing's been good, and that's a little bit of the background intel.
You said things were easier when you were young. How has the lake changed from that time when you started fishing to now, and kind of maybe break that down a little bit as far as what's been going on and why it was easier then than it is now?
One big thing, the lake, the water clarity is drastically increased, so the water's cleaner, which in my opinion, I think that allows the predatory fish like the salmon and trout to find the bait, and the bait can't hide in the dirty water as easily. So they're able to pound on the bait fish quite a bit more, but also the bait fish population has taken a little bit of a hit too in recent years compared to what it was. So from my understanding on the DNR aspect, this year, a little bit different on the stocking percentages, but the past few years they've been stocking a lot less fish. So back in the old days, I mean, guys, we used to go out and we'd fish 8 rods, just a couple down riggers and a couple dipsy rods, and maybe a planer board if you were brave enough, and we'd catch, as many fish as you wanted on most days. And now it seems like you need to run. I mean, we're running 18 lines on the average day just to try to keep up with the times, and a little bit less numbers of fish in the lake. We got line counters on our reels, and you can get all sorts of crazy technical with, speeds and depths on different kinds of rod setups, all sorts of different planer boards with coppers and lead core, weighted steel, dipsy rods, braid versus mono versus wire. So now we're getting all sorts of extra tools in our book that are definitely helping us just to kind of keep us up with the fishing. So I think just the numbers in the lake on the fish population is down, and the bait definitely. So if you don't have the bait, you can't support the fish population. So just like having an aquarium, you only get a couple fish in there, and once you start putting more fish in, you got to put more food in. And if you don't have enough food, you kind of start losing a few fish and lose a little bit of size. But I think in the past couple of years, the bait's definitely been coming back. The numbers of, especially the salmon, are down a little bit on the kings, but I would say the size is drastically increased. I mean, we're seeing a lot of, low. I'd say on average king right now, we're getting I'd say about 20 pounds. And that's, I mean, we're just first part of June here, and I've already seen some 30-plus pounders come out. And the biggest I've got so far this year is 28, and we still got a handful of months for them puppies to grow, and they're only going to get bigger and bigger. So that's kind of a benefit of maybe a little bit less population in the lake. You get the opportunities at those trophies. But I would say back in the day, I mean, we used to just run just a spinning reel on, like an 8-foot rod and no line counters. You hook it up to a downrigger or the outrigger, and you send it out and guess this plain Jane spoons, this blue silver stuff, green silver, gold, nothing too fancy. And, you'd knock a handful of fish off each day when you're younger, trying to learn how to net while your dad's reeling in fish, and vice versa. It's no big deal. And now some days you bump a couple fish off, you're looking at kind of a smaller box. But I think for the most part, the lake's on the upswing. The stocking numbers I put in this year, the king should be coming back up, at least on the Wisconsin side of Lake Michigan. Percentage, I want to say, was like a 60% increase from the year before. So it was about almost around double of what was in there. So in 2, 3, 4 years, those fish are going to be maturing, and, a lot more angler opportunity out there.
What is it about fishing Port Washington that's special to you? You started in Milwaukee. Now you're in Port Washington. What do you like about fishing out of Port Washington?
I think we get a little bit of the best of both worlds, call it, on the lake. So the farther south you go in Lake Michigan, the more gradual the lake drops off. So we're about as far south, about as far south as any port is, where you still have some shallower, gradual drops, but he also drops off slightly faster than, like, let's say Milwaukee or Racine or Kenosha. So as those fish that come up the lake in the beginning of the year, in the spring, the water starts to warm, we still get some pretty good coho action and a lot of those big steelhead right away. And then as the water warms up in the lake, in my opinion, I think they more or less shoot out to the east, more towards the center of the lake, rather than just going straight north, especially the rainbow and coho are more of a surface feeding fish. So my opinion, they just kind of scoot out towards the lake rather than going north and hitting Sheboygan, Algoma, and all that stuff. I know there's a lot of good rainbow fishing up north, but and then the kings, we have some pretty good drop-offs out here where I'd say about 3 miles, you're hitting 100 foot. In Milwaukee, I mean, you got to go, I want to say about 5 before you hit that 100-foot mark. So our transition to that deeper water just a little bit quicker, which I think holds those kings longer. So we get the nice early coho, rainbow, king, lake trout mix. And then as the summer progresses, those kings, rather than going totally out into the lake, they do migrate north. But a lot of fish we hold here, they'll just drop in the water column, and they'll sit around by us, and we'll sit there and target that, I say 80 foot to, 200 on the higher, on the deeper end. of that range for July and second part of August. And then we have a decent return here in the fall. I wouldn't say it's anything like Milwaukee or Sheboygan has, because they got a little bit bigger rivers down there that have more draw of fish, but we still have some pretty good harbor fishing here. Last year I got my biggest king ever, and that was the second last charter I ran last year, and I was just shy of 32 pounds. So we do get some tankers.
That was kind of my question: is how does fishing out of Port Washington differ from Milwaukee or Kenosha? I think you kind of answered it there. But how does the fishing progress throughout the season in Port Washington? What are what are the seasonalities like there?
Usually we get fishable fish. As in stating that, I mean, we can kind of go out and have some decent action on a little mixed variety. I would say you can usually bank on first part of June, and we usually have a pretty good mix. Sometimes it's a little earlier depending on how the weather is. But there's always, I'd say, a decent amount of lake trout opportunity before that even. So if you want to sneak out in May, fish for some of those lake trout, they're definitely around. There also is, there is salmon too here in the mix. So that's kind of early. And then as June progresses, we get more fish that show up. As the water in the lake warms up, they just scoot north, and we have a pretty solid mixed bag throughout June and first part of July. So we hold a lot of those coho, rainbow, and kings, which is really nice. So, I'd say for your most action, you're talking June. And then if you want a little more, I would say trophy potential, so all of July and the first half of August is super good. And then I feel we start to lose some kings over to the Michigan side, since in my opinion they have a little more better natural reproduction on that side. So a lot of those natural fish, they'll start to migrate back towards the eastern shore of the lake and north. So we do lose some fish, but I feel that we hold our good share over here in the summer, just because of the bait opportunity for the fish and forage on. So that's kind of how our lake sets up here for us in Port. A little bit of mixed bag of everything early, and then I would say second half of July through August is mainly kings, but we do get a mix of everything else. So it's kind of nice to have the changing of the seasons. You're not doing the same thing all the time. Like either southern part of the lake. You get a little bit of. I've gone down there and fished Waukegan. I fished St. Joe's over on the Michigan side in April and May, and you got to go to the fish. And as they migrate up, obviously they lose fish as it goes, and turns into a lot of lake trout fishing down towards the Wisconsin-Illinois border, which some people are stoked about and like doing that, and everybody's got their thing. But I feel the salmon is what drives the sport fishing industry out here.
You're taking a group out tonight. What does your game plan look like for this evening?
This evening, so since this past weekend, which was lights out for us, the water's been warming up here with especially on the surface. The transition down below hasn't been too big yet, so the fish are dropping a little bit in the water column. Probably going to be fishing that, I would say, 100 to 200 foot of water this evening, and expect to have some decent rainbow coho action for the first part of the trip. And as the kind of that evening time dwindles down, last couple hours before dark, in general, that bite slows up. We still do pick away a few up on the surface, but especially on a day like today with the high sun and very, very minimal wind, that king bite is going to be closer to dark. So we're going to try and bank on a couple of those big boys, kind of waiting for that sun to take a lower angle on the water and start lifting up in the water column as the sun comes down. I think that kind of has a lot to play too in salmon fishing, or especially kings. I was out on Saturday morning, and she was rougher than snot out there, and we had 5-6 footers, but the kings were pounding all morning. I only ran 8 rods, and we I probably had 35 bites in 5 hours on 8 rods, and we ended up landing 6 kings, and I think biggest was 28. Smallest king was in that, I'd say, 16 to 17 pound range, and we had a big pile of coho rainbow mixed in. And so if you can handle and weather the rougher seas, definitely have a little bit better opportunity for those kings to bite most of the day for you. I mean, you still can pick away at them throughout the day, especially with I would say the big increase of guys running meat rigs out there. I know that's pretty popular and becoming kind of almost a staple for a lot of boats running that stuff. And the calmer days and the water's kind of laying there and the fish get lazy, a little something with some scent on it, from what I hear, does some decent action. So but that also the big waves, and compared to flat calm, your speed, that definitely throws a little bit of a trick at you. One day you can have your RPMs on your motor the same, and depending on the wind and the wave action, your surface GPS speed is going to be completely different compared to your speed at the ball. And I mean, that's probably biggest, most critical thing out there. I mean, one thing I would say, if I could tell any Lake Michigan angler or Ontario or salmon fisherman, is you're looking to, if you got a handful, hundreds to spend, I mean, get yourself a fish hawk, because that thing's going to be your best friend, because you get different currents out there, and you could have the same GPS speed as me, but just going a different angle, and that current's pushing your baits a little bit different down below, and you could be a half-mile difference, and that's what makes or breaks it for you.
Well, what is your favorite way to target kings?
I would say I've been more playing around with the spoon game the last couple of years. As I kind of grew up, I was mainly a flasher fly guy. So I would say that's probably still my favorite way. I mean, if you can get a good downrigger bite, that's definitely my favorite. You're not fighting any super, super long leads or heavy setups out there, and it's just you and the fish. You're not, no big weights, no big planer boards you're monkeying around with. I mean, it's just you and him, and it's a little bit easier too for you, with the monofilament on the rod compared to braid or copper or lead core. You get a little stretch, so you can get away with a little bit more. And that's my favorite way to do it. If you can get in a good downrigger bite, find the perfect speed, the perfect angle that's working for you, and just get on a kill troll and just poke away at them. Sometimes it gets crazy. Like I was saying, on Saturday morning, it was pretty rough out there, and those kings were pounding pretty hard. We ended up having 3 big boys on at one time, so it was kind of a circus show for a little bit, getting into each other, and we managed to land 2 of them. So that worked out in our favor. Kind of a little bit less chaos out there, but yeah, getting those downriggers going. That's definitely my favorite. But flasher fly guy for sure. But I definitely know spoons definitely do hold their own on salmon fishing.
Tell me a little bit about Fin N Fly. Tell us about your charter, and if people want to know more about it, how do they find you?
Yeah, definitely. So Fin N Fly started last season, was the first year running. A good buddy of mine had fished with in the past, taken him out, and he was looking to kind of get into the business, and found the right opportunity on a boat. Picked up the boat, got a nice setup. Fish is great, and the operation we have going works outstanding. I mean, I have my network of people, the owner Neil and Dustin. They have a great network of people. We also have a website that just got refurbed. It's looking pretty good, and it's doing us some work. So that's at FinNFlySportfishing.com. Check that website out. It's pretty sharp. So yeah, so second year running, but business has been cranking. I mean, we've been producing fish. I mean, we host all sorts of different kinds of outings. No matter what you're looking to do, come out with a couple of buddies and try to go for big numbers of fish. You want to bring the family out, have a great time on the water. We do that, corporate events, a little bit of everything. So, I mean, last night I had a family, a husband, wife, and their 2 kids, about 10 and 12 years old. Fishing wasn't too crazy, but everybody got a couple rounds on the rods and took some nice fillets home, and everybody had a great time. I got hugs from the kids before they left, So, I mean, we kind of catered a little bit of everything, which is nice, rather than going out there. And biggest thing is having a good time while you're out there on the water. I mean, obviously we want to try and catch fish, but Some days it's a little tougher than others, but if you go out there with open mind, have a good time, good people, bring some food, some beverages out there, and enjoy the day for what it is. That's the best way to go about it. We got some great partners helping to getting the boat set up compared to how it was. We got running all Cannon downriggers on there. They've been producing and working very well for us. They make great product. And the Real Shot out of Appleton is networking with those guys up there, helping us get our boat set up. Just fishing reports back and forth. They do a great job. It's a big team effort, and it's not all about one person while you're out here. So that's kind of how we are. I'll go out there, have a good time, family atmosphere, and check that website out. We've been booking quite a few trips, so if anybody's looking to get out, give us a holler. There's phone numbers on the website, and get in touch with us, and we'll put you on some fish and have a good time out in the water.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. I know you've got clients probably about ready to step on the boat here any moment, so get you out there and get you fishing. But thanks for spending some time with us today and sharing what you know about Port Washington. It was great to talk to you.
Absolutely, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast presented by Fishhawk Electronics. For more information on fishing the Great Lakes, visit our blog at fishhawkelectronics.com.